When one thinks about the beaches in Mexico, one often thinks about the popular destinations like Cancun or Playa del Carmen and Tulum. One might also think of the more mountainous West Coast destinations such as Los Cabos or even Puerto Vallarta. However, if you want a more authentic and less commercialized experience, you may have to go off the beaten path. What if I told you that there is an area on the southern coast of Mexico many have not visited or even heard about that is fast becoming a popular tourist destination? This area is known to have some of the largest waves on the continent, and because of this, it has become a destination for surfers. Here, you are blessed with some of the most beautiful and captivating sunsets because of the way that the city faces into the ocean, something you do not find in every beach city. I must mention that this place has a tradition of releasing baby turtles into the ocean that people have participated in, for a fee, of course. In addition to beautiful beaches, you'll find interesting rock formations and stunning coves because of the seismic nature of the region. Aside from nature, this area has many eclectic and interesting shops, restaurants, and bars. So join me as we discover all of this and more in the up-and-coming area of Puerto Escondido in the state of Oaxaca, Mexico. If you are one who likes to explore underrated and underexplored destinations before they get too popular, then this is the video for you. We start our journey in the stunning colonial city of Oaxaca, which also happens to be the capital city of the Oaxacan state. This very colorful city has to be one of the most artistic in the country. But without a doubt, where this city really shines is in its culinary scene. From the many different types of street food, as well as the beautiful restaurants, along with the more refined dishes that you find in this city. Aside from food, there are many other things to do in this city, such as mezcal tasting and visiting prominent archaeological sites nearby. You can even take a short ride to interesting rock formations, as well as a town that is supposedly home to one of the widest trees in the world. These are just some of the many things you can see and do in and around Oaxaca, as we saw in the last episodes on this city. But of course, the goal is to go to Puerto Escondido, and for that, we go to the main bus station of Oaxaca. For this roughly 3-hour journey on a brand new highway that was constructed through very rugged terrain, I will be using ADO, or Autobuses del Oriente, which is a very dominant bus line in southeastern Mexico. We finally depart, and you will notice that it is a little dark, and that is because I took this trip in the early morning hours. After leaving the station, we noticed buses and taxis lined up for the early morning rush hour. And after leaving the center of the city, we enter newer parts of the city with franchises, strip malls, and high-rises. Shortly after leaving the city of Oaxaca, we go through a few of the quaint towns in the area. We finally enter the countryside, and it wasn't too long before we start to see many agave plantations, reaffirming this region's specialization in mezcal production. We also noticed many other interesting things, such as what seem to be greenhouses, as well as travel stops. We soon enter the new tollway that takes us over the southern mountains of Oaxaca to the Pacific coast. At this point, we are roughly 100 kilometers, which is about 2 hours of traveling to Puerto Escondido. As we get deeper into the mountains, it starts to green up with more trees, and we start to see evidence of moisture creeping up from the Pacific Ocean. When we reach the higher elevations, we enter full-blown alpine forests. And believe it or not, parts of the road were still under construction. After passing through the highest elevations of the drive, we finally start our decline to the coastal lowlands through a much more straight path than the old road, made possible by many cuts through the mountains as well as many tunnels and bridges. And as we start to make it down on the coastal side of the mountain range, we get a better appreciation for the sheer size of these mountains. As we go down in elevation, the pine vegetation starts to transition to a more tropical vegetation that typically greens up in the summer monsoon months. We finally reach the coastal lowlands as we enjoy the program on the bus. As we approach the Pacific Ocean, we hit the last toll booth, and after we do so, we get onto the main highway that will take us into Puerto Escondido. And almost immediately, we get signs that we are near the coast with all the tropical cabañas and palm trees. Before arriving into Puerto Escondido, we first pass by a few of the small towns in the area. And the ambiance seems so relaxed as you would expect going through an area with beach towns. It isn't long before I finally get my first view of the mighty Pacific Ocean, which happens to be the largest ocean in the world. After passing through some of the local towns, we finally enter the Puerto Escondido Zicatella area, and we notice many things such as a very big market that we will be visiting later on. We also start to see some of the very few bigger hotels and resorts in the area, even though there are not too many yet. Not to mention a lot of art revolving around the beach life. We climb one last hill with stunning views of the coastline before finally arriving to the bus station of Puerto Escondido. I reserved a simple but very cute hotel within walking distance of the bus station and close proximity to the beach. Alright guys, I have arrived in my room. It's a very simple room, but it's a great location. And more than anything, it's one of some of the hotels that actually have AC, because not all do. And when you're in this tropical zone, I would suggest get a hotel with AC, because here it usually never dips below 70. And in the daytime, it can get up to 90 or even above during certain months. And right now that we're in January, it felt like it was almost 90 outside, so keep that in mind. All right, time to check out the view from the balcony. Again, this is in the old part of town, and I like staying in these older parts because you have a lot of things very close together, a lot of restaurants, shops, etc. And from here, it's a very close walk to Zicatella, as you will see. Of course, right now it's kind of dead because of the heat, but oftentimes these areas come to life at nighttime or even the evening. Not so much of a fan of the heat, to be honest with you, especially for January. It's almost 90 degrees and humid, so I had to get this. Every time I buy a hat here in this country, I seem to leave it back home. I'm almost creating a collection of hats back home, but this was only 80 pesos. It's a steal, about $4, so definitely will help me with the walk today. And the cool thing is more relaxed. It's not like the more formal types that I usually buy. More, grooving with the beach environment, so to speak. It was now time to leave the hotel and hit the town to get our first impressions of the beaches. Just like many hotels in this country, this hotel too was quite artistic. And to be expected, the art here reflected more of a tropical beach vibe. As we exit the hotel, we get to enjoy some of the first raw footage of the city. Alright, so the goal is we're going to walk to one side of the Puerto Escondido Bay and start walking down the beach towards Zicatella, which is one of their main beaches. But the whole walk is quite beautiful. Every side of it is a little different. This side is a little bit more elevated. From what I understand, this is basically the original part of the city. We're very close to the actual core, the old downtown area. In this part, you see a lot of, older shops, restaurants. Some of them are nice, some of them are very basic. Very artistic. Some of the original hotels in the city you can see on this side of town. But I like being here because you're pretty central, unless you want to be in La Punta, which is an area we're going to attempt to reach today, which is on the other side. It's about a
2-3 miles away. I'm gonna try to walk this.
As I continue walking on the street that my hotel was located on, I passed by many businesses that were either beach related and of course food related, many of which were still closed either because of the hour or the heat in the middle of the day. But the street does typically come alive during the cooler nighttime hours. And thank goodness for the numerous ice cream shops that you find here and all over Mexico in general, because I feel that they do help tremendously with the heat. After walking on the street for a little bit, I turned the corner to start looking for an opening to the beach. And as we do so, we run across many restaurants on the beach serving seafood, and even some with chickens, believe it or not, maybe for cooking. We also run across a monument dedicated to the surfers who have been through here. It wasn't too long before I finally found my opening to get on to the beach. As I finally make it onto the beach, I see a whole bunch of boats that I can only assume are either for fishing or tours being offered on the beach, as you're about to see. From here, I decided to push forward to the water break to get a better view of everything, even though the heat was starting to get to me a little bit.
Now, from what I understand, this is the downtime, so you don't see too many people from other countries, although on the Zicatella side, especially La Punta, you'll see more. But you do see a lot of locals, so that keeps the businesses going. Also, I've noticed on this side things are cheaper, so I kind of like this side. And oftentimes you get pretty, not all the time, but pretty authentic foods for a better price. You know, I'm down for a nice place, but I feel like a lot of times they overcharge, and more than anything, oftentimes the quality is not even that good. So, but once in a while I do like the nice ambiance, I'm not gonna lie. But I still put good quality food, or the quality, over anything else. As much as I would want to buy that cocktail, shrimp cocktail from him, I don't know if I can trust something that's been seafood that's been walking around, so to speak. I'd rather get it from a restaurant where it hasn't been exposed to too much heat, especially things like shrimp.
As I got onto the water break, I could see the mighty Pacific Ocean to the right. And towards the end of this water break, it seemed like some people were indulging in fresh oysters. To the left, I had a nice view of Puerto Escondido's little bay where people were enjoying life in this beautiful ambiance.
Alright guys, from here we're going to start walking on the beach, wrap around towards Zicatella, which will be to our right. This is like a little bay that Puerto Escondido has. This bay is basically located next to a little peninsula that Puerto Escondido has, which is actually to our left. And that's something we'll be discovering more tomorrow. They have a very beautiful beach that you go down a cliff to, because the peninsula is actually quite rocky with a lot of cliffs.
As I'm walking on the beach, I did take note of a very prominent hotel in the distance, which from what I saw on the map is called Hotel Via Escondido. We also passed by billboards on the beach advertising various activities such as dolphin watching, whale watching, and snorkeling. And of course, we see more people selling a variety of food on the beach. We see more boats on the beach, some of which were probably involved in the tours that were advertised. And curiously, behind the beach where it turned, there happened to be an area with what seemed to be stagnant water, as you're about to see. Interestingly, there was a sand barrier set up, which I can only assume was there to prevent this murky water from mixing with the beach water. And soon after, we reach Zicatella.
Alright, so looking at the map, it shows that this area to be called Playa Marinero. Now I'm not sure if that's actually a part of Zicatella or not, but the little strip of Zicatella bars, restaurants, etc. is coming up. You will see a street coming down that small cliff, and in front you will see all those restaurants. So we're literally past that little cliff that you see ahead. Not gonna lie, I'm sweating. The heat is starting to get to me a little bit, but again, not because I'm not used to this type of heat, but because I think my body's in shock from coming from the US and even from the cities like Mexico City, the highland cities where it actually was cold, to the warmth here. So it's not so much that it's really that warm. I think I would actually appreciate this weather in August, but for January, not so much. But then somehow I would take this over 20 degrees any day, but that's just me. And by the way, in case you guys didn't know, this city is known for having some of the biggest waves actually in the world. I've heard different rankings, but I've heard there's also big surf competitions here because of the size of the waves. And of course, depending which side of the city. And these don't even look as big as some of the ones that I've seen. But it definitely has a very interesting beach vibe because the water is pretty nice, but it's rough. So some parts might not be terribly safe to swim. Of course, you see more people swimming in the bay where we just passed by, but it seems once we came on this side of that little water area, the water got really rough and the waves became a lot bigger.
One of the joys of being in a city like this is taking a moment to appreciate the ocean. Seeing the waves crashing down so majestically onto the beach has to be one of the most beautiful things in nature. Once again, it is not uncommon to see rock formations coming out of the beach in a very stunning way, and that is likely because this area is quite seismic. This state is in one of the most seismic zones in the country and the North American continent as a whole.
This is one of the biggest rock formations right on the beach. Pretty impressive. It looks like maybe at least 2, maybe 3 stories high, as you can tell with the people sitting on top. Very, very impressive. Really adds to the ambiance. Again, thanks to the very seismic environment. This state of Oaxaca is known to have some of the largest number of earthquakes in this country.
I was considering climbing this massive rock formation, but it already seemed like there were too many people at the top. Keep in mind, climbing such rocks can be dangerous and at your own risk.
Alright guys, that hill that we saw as we were walking towards this area is called Mirador Romance de Verano, from what I read on the map. And I feel like it's definitely a place to check out because it has a view, and we're going to walk up there so you can see it for yourself. And this viewpoint is essentially the beginning of the Zicatella strip of restaurants and bars, which you can see right to the right, which the street came down from on top of the hill like I had explained earlier. And from here we're going to see a lot of these beautiful restaurants, bars. Alright, we're about to arrive to the beginning of this little climb. It's not a very big climb, but I always try to do these in one shot, so let's see if we can do it in this heat. Alright guys, kind of took my breath away, literally. Not because it was such a big climb, but again, my body has heated up a lot. So now, I'm definitely going to need to find a place to cool down with the heat. But you guys can see the views. Again, well worth it. This is one of the things I live for, guys, is views. Right below us, we see the beautiful Hotel Santa Fe, as well as a very famous local sculpture by the name of, guess what? Los Manos, which means the hands.
From what I understand, this monument was created to honor those who have drowned in these treacherous waters. The big waves and currents can be tragically dangerous. From here, we start our walk on the popular Zicatella strip, starting with the stunning colonial Hotel Santa Fe. Not only was this hotel beautiful, but it also occupied a pretty big footprint. It even seemed to have a restaurant whose menu was displayed on the outer walls. One of the interesting attributes of Zicatella are the many bars you will find along the beach itself. And some of them even turn into clubs at nighttime on certain days when the weather is a little cooler. It is quite common to see a lot of creativity in these bars with different types of art. Some bars even offered the opportunity to play pool in an outdoor ambiance, while others honored the surfers who have competed here. To me, this place really represents a more authentic beach town, being that instead of the typical massive resorts and high-rises that you see in places like Cancun, you see a lot more of these smaller, cute businesses with a lot of character. Some really go out of their way to make their place feel very inviting in a creative way. Aside from bars and restaurants, there were even stores along the beachfront. And it is common to find many access points to the beach, but it does seem that many of them belong to the businesses. Despite all the cool bars on the beach, still majority of the businesses are on the other side of the street. On that side, you have many interesting shops, restaurants, and even more bars, as well as some very beautiful hotels. This place is one of such hotels which, based on the painting, was supposedly recommended by Lonely Planet, and it has this really cool entrance between these buildings and even sits on top of a hill. This other hotel really gives you a beach feel with the hammocks in its balconies. To be expected, I ran into hotels with themes revolving around surfing. And of course, being that we are in Mexico, you also find some colonial style hotels, which honestly has to be one of my favorite styles, being that they typically have a very beautiful courtyard adorned with colorful flowers that seem to give you an instantaneous feeling of happiness. Even many of the simpler hotels still had a lot of character, in my opinion, being that they had attributes representing the area and the culture. As I have said before, even though this area is not as developed as the bigger resort cities in this country, you are starting to see more decent-sized hotels as this area gains more popularity. And even though you see many businesses in this area, nothing seems too over-commercialized, to me at least, as you will see. In the midst of all of this, I finally bump into the touristic sign for Zicatella. After walking around in Zicatella for a little bit, I was starting to crave a cold matcha, and lucky for me, I was able to find a coffee shop.
Alright guys, I think we finally found our coffee shop, but it's about to close in 10 minutes. Hopefully it's not closed already, like the last one. Sierra. Well, guess what guys, I'm not in luck today. Said it closed at 5 on the internet, but doesn't mean you can always trust things that you see on the internet. It's been my experience often.
Lucky for me, I finally found a coffee shop that was open not too long after, where I indulged in a matcha latte with coconut milk. After this well-deserved break, we start our trek to an area that I feel is even more interesting. And as I left the coffee shop, we run into something quite peculiar.
This is a very interesting project because it's been abandoned for a while. Not sure if it's because they ran out of money.
From this point, we start deviating from the beach and head towards the main highway, where we will hit one of the main markets in the area on the way to La Punta. Doing so, we walk through the interior neighborhoods of Zicatella, which seem to be a mixture of residences and businesses of many sorts. Aside from more bars and restaurants, I ran into businesses offering yoga as well as surfing accessories to be expected, and even casinos. I also bumped into many newer buildings that seem to be either residential or lodging, showing you the growth in the area. Walking around in this area so far, it has become obvious that motorcycles and mopeds are two of the main modes of transport in this area. And being that this area is growing quite fast, you do see a lot of ads selling vacant lots. As I kept on walking, I finally reached the main highway and the marketplace.
I love the random things you see when you're traveling. Of course, this lot doesn't look very nice, but just like any city, you got your nice parts, you got your not so nice parts, but we also have chickens. How about that? In the middle of the city. All right, guys, we reached the main highway. And right where this monument is, we have the official Mercado of Zicatella. I thought it was from Puerto Escondido, but it's actually Zicatella. So this is it's actually in the building. A lot of times market areas are just along the streets. But I guess being that Zicatella is a lot newer than Puerto Escondido, that would be my guess why this market is in a building. Fortunately, it looks like almost everything is closed. Well, anyway, guys, just to kind of give you an idea, I'm assuming that this place is a lot more bustling. A little bit earlier, but it's barely like 5:15, 5:20. But the cool thing about this place is how many markets do you know that have a cool view of the ocean? There do seem to be a few stores that are open, but very far, and a few between. Yeah, everybody's closing out. Looks like I came right as they were closing. Seems to be the story of my life. I packed so many things into one day. Now maybe I can get to one restaurant, maybe get a snack, because actually I want to eat in La Punta, which is the area after here, which kind of has a hippie vibe. Yeah, there's some restaurants still open. Got a variety of Mexican food and of course some seafood. I don't like that they don't have prices because I feel like once they see me, they're gonna want to double charge me. Not saying everybody does that, but I have noticed that in some places, if they don't have their prices, sometimes it's because they want to do what I call variable charging. Of course, I can't confirm in a lot of places, but it sure does feel like it. And I know a lot of you guys who travel have felt the same way too. And you know, with that said, honestly, a lot of business owners are very honest. It's just usually a few that do that. But the few that do that really mess it up for everybody else.
Being that my options were limited here, I decided to wait till La Punta to have my meal. And wait till you see what I had. In the meanwhile, I decided to continue walking around to check out any stores that might be open, like this one selling cheeses, being that this state is known for its cheese. To be expected, I did find a few stores selling fresh fruits and vegetables. And just like the city of Oaxaca, I also found quite a bit of cultural art in this place. Join me on the next episode as we continue our walk and end up in the very artistic and eclectic area of La Punta. This area to me honestly looks like a place out of the movies when thinking about a laid-back yet very fun, idyllic coastal town in the tropics. It almost seems like a mixture of Mexico, a California beach town, with a splash of Austin. Just like many places in the area, La Punta really seems to come to life in the evening. Despite doing many cool things like drinking fresh cream of coconut, or choosing an interesting restaurant to have a very delicious meal, or even participating in a card game on the street, the main event in the next episode, without a doubt, is a baby turtle release ceremony that is a big deal in this town, attracting people from all over the world. This honestly has to be one of the most interesting events on the beaches of Mexico, and I will show you where to find it and what the process is.